There's something I want to speak about this morning, as stupid as it is important for me because it's my life, and it's the war on consent. And it sounds stupid, but the interesting thing is I have supporting Betty Martin from 2014 on, bringing the wheel of consent to Europe in different communities, specifically in Germany and Sweden, and was teaching 25 like a pro workshops with her, or co-facilitating or assisting. I don't know how you want to call it. Anyway, with her, teaching professionals on consent, and there were always people asking, yeah, but how is that? And how is that? And how is that? And they were asking, for example, as a professional, what if you really enjoy your work? Then you are in a shadow because then you're taking what you're doing. So many practitioners stop enjoying their work while they are in action because that was not what the other person was requesting. And a few years back, in 2019, I stopped working with the Wheel of Consent, had a fallout with Betty Martin. Well, that was the weirdest thing in life that I still can't really fully explain what happened and why it happened, but it happened. And then a few years back later, I was here in Stockholm on the Tantra Festival, where I got just excluded from the organizer, and I was wondering why that is, and I reached out to them, and they were just really mean to me, and I can't really explain why that was, but they had their reason. So I just choose to buy a ticket to go to the festival, because instead of me, my ex-partner, I brought into the School of Consent with Betty Martin, and we got separated then in 2019. She got invited to teach the Wheel of Consent, what I have been teaching before on somatic consent, and so they're kind of thrown me out, replaced me with her. Anyway, she came and replacing me, and I bought a ticket and went there, and she got so intimidated, and the entire festival had this big drama going on where the organizer anonymously was posting in Tantra No Trauma that consent teacher breaching boundaries and invading somebody else's workshop, blah, 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 not having the backbone or the spine actually speaking directly on social media by doing a kind of a guilt tripping thing, and was this absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I was there at this festival and was talking with one of the people, another facilitator, and he said just like, what's going on? And I said just like, this is the war on consent, and he just laughed. And but it is actually a war on consent, at least an inner war in myself. So the war on consent, and I've seen that over the last years more and more intensely, that the entire woke community has been hijacking the wheel of consent and using it as a weapon. So it's weaponized. That when there is no circle of consent, then there are the shadows, and they have been using it kind of just like putting in people's faces, you have looked at me, you are a perpetrator. And specifically, the victim mentality has been misused to go into this power projection, making other people wrong. And most people don't know that actually the wheel of consent is a structure that comes from the 3-minute game. Yeah, not the 3-minute game comes from the wheel of consent. The opposite around. Harry Fedis is the creator of the 3-minute game, and Betty Martin adapted it in her way. But there are a few things why the wheel of consent doesn't work. It works in combination as a graphic of the 3-minute game, because that's what the 3-minute game does. It just shows the dynamic between giving and receiving and who is doing the action. But the 3-minute game has another thing in storage, and that's the depth of giving your gift of power. Yeah, the so-called taking dynamic in the wheel of consent. And Harry Fedis explained it that way, from the place of surrender. So you need to surrender and give your power to a greater power than yourself to save your sanity. And I was posting that in 2020 when I was out of the school of consent publicly on social media, and people were just like roasting me, just like, yeah, this is power abuse and, you know, all this structure. And I just remember many people in the BDSM community, specifically DOMs or pro-DOMs or mistresses, or, you know, they said just like, well, the wheel of consent doesn't work for me, because they know you give your gift of power to somebody else to surrender, and that's just the fact of it. And there are so many other things that the wheel doesn't cover that people don't really grasp. Specifically, what if I want to be in service? I give my gift from an interpersonal place because I love giving my gift. I love giving when I have abundance, and I provide that other people have a benefit, and not for me having gratification or most satisfying experience. No, it's just like because I love to give my gift. And where is that in the wheel of consent? Yeah, that doesn't exist. Or, you know, the interpersonal dynamic when two are in action, and it is for both. You know, the entire structure of lovemaking. Both are in action and both enjoying it. What if there is this power struggle? Now it's for me and I'm only one in action. You have to be still. So this consent bot rigidity that I actually have adapted when I was working with the wheel of consent, because I was one of these rigid consent bots saying, yes, if there is no consent, then there is a shadow. So I have promoted that. So I am part of this misconception. I am guilty. I am guilty. I have misused the wheel of consent in a rigid structure and made people guilt-tripping, putting a shadow on them when I have actually not really fully understood it myself. So the war of consent. The reason why I have published the book Orgasmic Blueprint is because I just wanted to clean up with this consent misconception, and that there needs to be a broader perception on how consent really works. It's a specific dynamic that includes an interpersonal human engagement, the shadows as well, because all our survival mechanism and strategies based on our upbringing, our trauma, our conditioning, where we're from, they are all intertwined in the way how we engage and relate with other people and with life in itself. And life is far away from anything but safe, you know, and the structures, they work in the structure of the 3-minute game and how it all works when you're safe. But life is not safe. It's dangerous, it's lethal. We are constantly on survive in so many different things, and we need to engage different behavior and structures to actually get our needs met and getting a benefit. And sometimes it's absolutely appropriate, but it's only appropriate when the wheel upholding community says, yeah, but that's a shadow. But it's not, because it depends on the perception. So that said, the structure of what I was trying to bring up with Orgasmic Blueprint and with somatic consent and the somatic consent engagement system, and the implication of the polyvagal theory, how that stuff works specifically in lovemaking and in edging, you know, the war on gender, how men and women sexually engage, who is it for, and it's all now your fault, and you're not doing this, and you know, this war needs to stop. It needs to stop within. And it needs to stop within you, maybe. I don't know. But what I want to say is one specific structure here, that the neurological implementation of our nervous system, specifically when we are in lovemaking, when we are safe, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, so the dorsal parasympathetic, this place of immobilization and mobilization, so sympathetic, works together at the same time, so we can be in action and fully relaxed at the same time. What is literally on a neurological level, you have one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas, and that in itself allows you to go into an ecstatic state. Yeah. So for the case somebody brings you in surrender, yeah, your body will have impulses and will go into action, and you are not in a shadow. When somebody is giving the gift of power for you to have an ecstatic orgasmic experience, and your body starts moving and doing different things, so this action is sympathetic and you are in action for yourself. Are you in a shadow then? I don't think so. That would be sad. That would be so freaking sad. So that said, the 3-minute game has a specific function that is a little bit different than Betty Martin's interpretation of the 3-minute game and her wheel of consent. And if you're interested and curious what Harry Faddis has to say about the 3-minute game and the gift of power and giving you a gift of power, that has literally nothing to do what Betty Martin describes as the sensory inflow in taking, where you are in action for yourself. Because this is not the intention of the 3-minute game in the first place. Yeah. Betty Martin has taken the 3-minute game and alienated in her own interpretation. And I say that with absolutely certainty because I have taught with her, I've observed her, and I have used the last 5-6 years to digesting, understanding, looking in this entire structure from so many different angles. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. I will be more than happy to answer them. And if you don't understand anything of what I have said that is really, really important and dear to me, please feel absolutely free to reach out in PM or send me any references, whatever you would like to do. So this war of consent, I want to bring that to an end. And I stand up with my gift of power, what I have brought into the world of sensuality, sexuality, into facilitation and Tantra. And the orgasmic blueprint is my gift and is my contribution. And I love to share my gifts. And if you love to share your gifts and you would like to get more information about it, maybe you stick your nose into this book and have a little read. All right. Enjoy your day. Love yourself. And the sensory inflow, the direct route of pleasure, is 100% part of my teaching. And I love it. Ciao for now and enjoy your day.